Welcome everyone. Fundamentals of Kabbalah and Chassidut, continuing our series on the mysteries of creation. The mysteries of creation. Now, last week, we spent a good part of the class analyzing one midrash, and we didn't totally finish or delve into it as deeply as I'd like. And so that's where we're going to start here. For those who weren't in the class, I'll just explain briefly, and this way remind everyone what we're talking about. In the story of creation, especially the creation of mankind. So the verse says, and God said, let us create man in our image and our likeness. The obvious question that the Midrash is addressing is, who is the us? Who is God speaking to? Who is he taking counsel? That's how the Midrash understands when it says, let us make human beings in our image and likeness. He was actually asking advice or counsel. And the Midrash gives 5 different possibilities of who he was asking counsel from. And so very quickly, I'm going to go through this, that the 5 possibilities, and we discussed how it's not 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or of these, it's all of these. Each one has its place and its perspective. So it's as if God asked counsel from all these different possibilities. So the first one was all of creation. Since mankind is the last creation, the crown of creation, the purpose of creation, so God wanted to include everything that had happened before, all the other creations. So that's the first opinion. Again, I'm just reviewing quickly. The second opinion is, which is very similar to this, but a little bit different, is God asked each day of creation what they thought in order to get their input and their participation in the creation of human beings. The third possibility that the Midrash offers is God was asking counsel with the angels. The fourth possibility was God was asking counsel from the souls of the tzaddikim. And this is actually, of all 5 possibilities, this is the one that is most quoted. And we discussed at length, what does this mean? There are no human beings. There's no time, there's no space, there's no world. So what does it mean that God took counsel with the souls of the tzaddikim? And we saw that these were the future tzaddikim of the Jewish people who would be born in the future, but at that point, they are part and parcel of the of divinity, of godliness. So it was as if God was having an inner discussion with the future souls of Israel. Because we have a verse that says, all of your people are tzaddikim. The 5th possibility was God was taking counsel from his own heart. And there we brought the idea that when God proposes to destroy the world in the generation of Noah, because people have become so evil. So the verse actually says that God regretted in his heart that he had created mankind. And so here there is this idea of the heart of God. So that is the 5th possibility, that God was, again, having an inner dialogue with his own, we'll call it unconscious, subconscious, as it were. So that's a quick summary of what we learned last week. And now, for those people who just came on, please go to the chat and you'll see the chart that we're going to be using for the next few minutes. And so here, if there are 5 different possibilities, the idea in Kabbalah actually is very, very organized, especially Rabbi Ginsburg. Rabbi Ginsburg is a maven, is a genius in taking concepts and corresponding them one to the other. And in fact, that is what the word Kabbalah means. Kabbalah means from the root lekabel. Lekabel means to receive, but it also means to make correspondences. And in fact, in the Torah itself, that is the context where this root appears. Does everyone have the chart? Yes? No? Yeah? Okay. So Toby, you just try again. Try again. Everyone else has the chart. So it's from your side. Try again. It's posted there. Okay, so if there are 5 different opinions, so Rabbi Ginsburg organizes this with the 4 letters of God's name and the tip of the Yud, which is a 5th level of the divine name of God. This corresponds to the 5 levels of the soul. And this corresponds to the 5 Kabbalistic worlds. Usually we talk about 4 worlds, but the Arizal revealed a 5th world. So here, when you look at the chart, you see it's very organized. And it's just a golden opportunity, especially we're talking about creation, is to understand the correspondences here. So we're going to start with going from below to above. So the first opinion is, who did God take counsel with? The general workings of heaven and earth, meaning all of creation, but in a general way. So this, of course, corresponds to the lower hay of God's name and the world of action. Because when we're talking about general creation, well, that's this world. That's how it developed into this world. And on the level of soul, this is the nephesh. Because the nephesh is the part of the soul, sometimes referred to as the animal soul, that is most connected to the body. So here we see direct correspondences that the world of action, Olam Asiyah, corresponds to the nephesh in the soul. It's that part of the soul that's most connected to physical material reality. That is the world of action. That is our world that we perceive and we act in. And this is the lower hay in God's name. Now we're moving up to the next one. And the second opinion was that God asked the individual days, the creations of the individual days. So what's the difference between that and general creation? So here it's more specific. And this is connected to the world of Yetzirah, the world of formation. So what does that mean? So when we relate to the world, in a sense, we're relating to it in a very superficial way. Like the expression says, what you see is what you get. In other words, we look at images, physical images, a room, a table, a person, a light bulb, and that's what we see. But we know from science, if you just put a microscope on, let's say, someone's hand, all of a sudden, you would start to see within the hand, you'd see the blood vessels, you would see the cells, you would see the atoms, you would see the particles. In other words, the world of formation is the coded world, the inner forms of what we are perceiving in the outer world. So that's the world of formation, and that's the Vav in God's name. And this is the level of soul called Ruach. This is the spirit, in a sense, behind the forms. In other words, if you look at my hand right now, it seems stationary. But the cells are a factory of action. Hundreds of chemical actions and reactions are happening in every cell. You go into the atom, then you have scores of particles, all of them interacting. This is the world of formation. And like I say, we're seeing a superficial version of all of this. The next possibility of who God took counsel with were the angels. The angels were moving up here. This is the upper hay of God's name. And this is the world of Bria. Now, I'll make an important point here, is that when you make correspondences, it's like similar to the theory of relativity. Everything's relative to that particular structure. So usually, if we're talking about the relationship between angels and human beings, in general, we would say that angels are in the world of Yetzirah. Human beings are coming from Beria. Now, there are certain souls that are coming from Atzilut and certain angels coming from Bria. But in this particular structure that we're creating here, the angels are connected to the world of Bria. And as we'll see, the next opinion is that God was taking counsel with the souls of the tzaddikim. And these are human beings. And this is the world of Atzilut. This is the upper Yud. And this is the Chaya. Because we're told, what is the Chaya in the soul? The neshama is the more intellectual part of the soul, and the Chaya is the will, is ratzon. And since only human beings have true free will, they're connected here to Chaya. Angels do not have free will. And so even though we conceive of angels being higher, more spiritual than human beings, we're taught that's not true. Human beings, at least in potential, are on a much higher level than angels, because that is one of the main definitions of the very verse that we're studying, where it says, let us make man in our image and our likeness. So we know we're not talking about a physical image and a physical likeness. So one of the key answers to this, it's free will. That just like God can do what God wants to do, human beings are given that ability also, to the point that we can not accept that there's a God in the world at all. A person has that free will to ignore or dispute the fact that there's even a creator. That's how much free will that God has given us. So that's the chaya in the soul. That's the will. And it's translated as free will. And the last possibility of who God was taking counsel was from his own heart. So here, this is the tip of the yud. This is the highest level. And this corresponds to Adam Kadmon. Adam Kadmon, when it says that God looked into the Torah and created the world. So this is very similar to the function of Adam Kadmon. Adam Kadmon is like the plan, is the program, it's the hard drive that's running the whole program. And that's called Adam Kadmon. And this relates to the Yechidah in the soul. So here, fairly quickly, we made some beautiful correspondences, because when we're talking about the mysteries of creation, I'm going to now connect this to the creation of light. That in the first verse of the Torah, it says that God created the heavens and the earth. So this is very general. We're told the heaven here represents all spiritual reality on all the different levels of the worlds that would ever be created. And the earth represents all physical and material reality. And so the one specific creation on the first day is light. And it's pointed out that the word light is mentioned 5 times on the first day of creation. And so the different commentaries over the ages have said that this is an allusion to the 5 levels of the soul, because the soul is compared to light, especially in the verse, Ner Hashem Nishmat Adam, the candle of God is the soul of humanity, of a human being. So the soul is compared to fire, to light, to a candle. And so the 5 mentions of light on the first day of creation is a remez and a hint to the 5 levels of the soul. And we're also told that it's almost a prophetic hint to the 5 books of Moses, to the Chumash, that the Torah is 5 books. And the Torah is called light, Torah or, the light of the Torah. So here, when we made these correspondences between the 5 different opinions who God took counsel with, it's like God taking counsel with the 5 different levels of the soul and corresponding to the manifestation of the 5 levels of reality as a development of the 5, well, really the 4 letters of God's name, but the tip of the Yud. And this is obviously connected to the 5 worlds of reality. Now remember that these 5 worlds, we operate in the world of Asiyah. But it's explained in Kabbalah and Chassidut that when we talk about the 5 worlds, from our perspective, we're talking about 5 different levels of consciousness. And that's why the Maggid of Mezrich said Atzilut, meaning the highest level of the worlds, not counting Adam Kadmon. He said, Atzilut is here in this world. In other words, it's not a hierarchy where Atzilut exists somewhere else, a different plane of existence, a different dimension. There's a reality to that, but since man is the crown of creation, through our consciousness, we can be aware of all of the worlds, the world of formation, the world of creation, the world of emanation, and the plan of creation. The plan of creation. Now, I want to add one more column here. And that is just a word that epitomizes each of these worlds and, in a sense, each of these levels of soul. So in the world of action, the world of Asiya, our physical material world, so the word is matter. Physical reality in scientific terms is called matter. In the world above it, the world of form, like we discussed before, the archetypal building blocks that are behind the outside manifestation of physicality and materialism, the building blocks of creation. So the word here is form, just like the name of the world of formation, that these are the higher forms. And that's why in Greek philosophy, Plato based a lot of what he was talking about, that everything in this world has a mirror image, a spiritual counterpart in a higher world. But way before Plato, this was common understanding in Jewish thought, that everything in this world is a reflection of higher worlds. That's what we're talking about, all these different levels of worlds. And each one is connected one to the other, and each one is integrated in a holistic way, one within the other. And we're actually told that there's something special about this world, more than any of the other worlds, is because it's the lowest of all the worlds, all of the worlds are here in it. The upper worlds, in a sense, they have this world in potential, but not in actualization. So that is a tremendous advantage, of course, if we use our consciousness in order to perceive all of these worlds. So again, the world of action, Olam Asiya, is matter. The world of formation is form. The world of creation, Olam HaBriya. So the word that represents this is energy. Because we know now from science that matter, in essence, is energy. That energy manifests itself in the building blocks of creation, in the world of formation, the cells, the atoms, the particles, the elements. And that is what this world is based on. But behind that is energy, pure energy. And of course, it took Einstein to reveal this, that matter is energy. So that means if you look at the chair you're sitting on, or the table where you're sitting, and it seems inanimate, it seems like nothing is happening. Well, if you could look inside there, there is a frenetic, absolutely almost crazy, frenetic world of energy whirling around. We don't see it, but that is what the table is. That is what the chair is. So this is pure energy. That's the world of Bria. Now, what about the world of Atzilut? The word that epitomizes the world of Atzilut is light, or. Because what is energy? What is energy? The light of God. And that's why we say in the world of Atzilut, there's no division between or and keli, between light and vessel. It's all totally unified in one reality. As we move down the worlds, the division or the difference between light and vessel becomes more and more pronounced. So in the world of Atzilut, it's God's light, which then is translated into energy. That energy creates the forms, which then becomes matter. But now we have just one more link in the chain, the highest link. So what is the light? What is the light of God? And the light of God is the wisdom of God. And that's why every morning we say in our prayers, Kulam b'chachma asita. Everything you made in wisdom. Now, the very important point we can make here is that science today is becoming more and more aware that the matter, the forms, the energy, light, there's something animating all of that, and that is pure information. That's how science talks about it. It's pure information, coded. It's very much like when we talk about the DNA. The DNA is the code through which physical material, living beings come into existence. The whole code, it's like Adam Kadmon is encoded on these strings of proteins. So just to review, this time we're going to go from above to below. We just went from below to above. Now we're going to go from above to below. And that is, we have God's wisdom. That wisdom is, I'll use the word translated. It's transmuted into God's light. God's light becomes pure energy. The energy is then manifest in building blocks of form, which allows matter to come into existence. So again, wisdom, light, energy, form, matter. Now the truth is there's one level higher than all of it, and that's what's talked about in Kabbalah and Chassidut as Atzmut, the essence of God. And about the essence of God, we really have no idea. That is, how the essence becomes bridged to the wisdom. This is part of the mystery of divinity. Is the essence is really beyond our comprehension. But we can see in our world and all the other worlds God's wisdom, God's light, God's energy, the forms and the building blocks that God has chosen to allow a physical, material world of matter to come into being. But once we get to essence, atzmut, so that remains a mystery. The mystery of creation. Okay, so that's the first part of our class today. I sent in the WhatsApp that the other part of the class today is what we're going to do, and we're going to do this relatively quickly, is that in Sefer Yetzirah, in the 4th chapter, the 16th, call it the Mishnah of Sefer Yetzirah. So it says, 2 stones build 2 houses. 3 stones build 6 houses. 4 stones build 24 houses. 5 stones build 120 houses. 6 stones build 720 houses. And then it says, 7 stones build, I don't have it in front of me, I believe 5,040 houses. And then it says you go from there until you can't count anymore. So what does this mean? What are the stones and what are the houses? The stones are the Hebrew letters, and the houses are words. So if you have 2 letters, you can build 2 words. What is it? Aleph, bet, bet, aleph. Av, ba. Now, if you have 3 letters, and this is the basis of all roots in Hebrew, you can make 6 words. Everyone, if you have a pen and paper, if you take ABC or Aleph, Bet, Gimel, you can combine them, you can permute them. That's the key word here, permute them into 6 different combinations. If you have 4 letters, you can make 24 combinations. 5 letters, 120, and so forth. So I'm mentioning this because one of the volumes of what's called the Zohar literature is called Tikkunei Zohar, which literally means the rectifications of the Zohar, the fixings of the Zohar, Tikkunim. There are 70 chapters, and the entire book is based on permutations of the word Bereshit. That's why I'm bringing this, because this series is called Mysteries of Creation. And Bereshit, of course, is the first word of the Torah. And this entire volume is based on different permutations of the word Bereshit, because there are 6 letters. So in theory, you could make 720 different combinations without any repeating. And so the book takes many, many different permutations. Now I have to mention here that if you have 3 root letters, you can make 6 different combinations. But an amazing thing is there are only 7 roots in Hebrew that all 6 combinations make words that we know what they mean. Meaning you can have a 3-letter root and it forms a word, and then maybe you can make another 1, 2, or 3 combinations, but there'll be 1 or 2 that the combination will be, well, we don't know what this root means. There is no root in Hebrew that we know of that is represented by these letters. So when I was thinking about this, this is a bit how science talks about what when they talk about the DNA, so they've identified, I don't know the exact number, but when they did the genome mapping of all of the combinations of proteins, they came up with a fairly limited amount of combinations of proteins that manifest themselves in our bodies, in the reality of a human being. And the rest, up to now, they've called it junk proteins because they can't figure out the combinations. But recently, apparently, they're starting to realize that even though they're called junk proteins, they have some kind of a function that science hasn't figured out yet. So it's the same thing with these words of letters that we don't have meaning for them. They must have some kind of meaning. We just aren't aware of them yet. So the point is that the Tikkunei Zohar I have to say, it's one of the most quoted parts of the entire Zohar. And like most Torah literature, it uses these different permutations and then it jumps all over the place. And some of the most fundamental concepts of Kabbalah come from the Tikkunei Zohar. So what we're going to do with the time remaining is we're going to go through a lot of these permutations. It might be instructional if anyone has pen and paper, and because I'll spell them out. And we may continue next week with this because it's super fascinating. And the reason is because in the word Bereshit, in a sense, is contained the secrets of all of creation. In a previous class, we learned that everything that would be created during the 7 days of creation were already created on the first day. Everything on the first day is already found in the first verse. Like we said already tonight, that the heavens represent all spiritual reality and the earth represents all physical reality. So you have everything, just like science talks about at the instant of the Big Bang, everything that would ever be created in the tens of billions of galaxies that we have, each one having tens of billions of stars, was all present in that almost infinitely small speck that banged, that exploded. So everything in the first verse, though, they say, is found in the first word of the Torah, Bereshit. And on a deeper level, they say everything is found in the first letter in the Bet. And then, even deeper, everything is found in the white space preceding the Bet. Yesh mi'ayin, something from nothing. So we're going to go through some of the permutations of Bereshit. This is in no particular order. They're just different permutations that are found in the Tikkunei Zohar. So the first one is bara shit, bet resh aleph hyphen shin yud taf. He created 6. In Aramaic, 6, shesh, is shin yud taf. And so the Tikkunei Zohar uses this to explain that already in the first word of creation is the prototype of all creation, the 6 days of creation. It's all there. And because of that, this forms the basic cycle of time as the Torah teaches. 6 days of work and a 7th day of rest. 6 years of work, 7th year of Shemitah, sabbatical year. 6,000 years of history, and the 7,000th, may it come quicker, the Messianic era. So this is all encoded where it says he created 6. It's not just 6 days, but it's the concept of 6 is going to run through all of creation, not just the 6 days of creation. The way we relate to time. Now, not only that, but the Ramban says what in fact was created at the very instant of creation, of the yesh. Before the yesh, there was ayin, there was nothingness. That nothingness, though, is not what we conceive of nothingness. That nothingness is the source of all somethingness. It's like the womb is the birthing place of reality. Okay. So the Ramban says, so what was created at that instant? Time and space. And both of them are connected to the number 6. Because as we saw, all the cycles of time are based on 6 and 1 equals 7. But it's based on 6 and then 1. We're going to see in a minute where the 1 comes in here. And space is 6 directional. We have length, breadth, and height. We have 6 directions. That's like when we shake lulav. That's one of the secrets of shaking lulav, is to the 6 directions. Because all of space is like a expanding cube. So when it says he created 6, this is hinting that God created time and space. There was no time and space as we can conceive of it before the creation of this physical material world. So now that we mentioned the 6, so what's another permutation is Yirah Shabbat, or Ya'er. I'll spell this first. Yirah is Yud Resh Aleph hyphen Shin Bet Tav. Yirah Shabbat, the awe of Shabbat. Or Ya'er Shabbat, Yud Aleph Resh hyphen Shin Bet Tav. The enlightenment, the light of Shabbat. So here we have in the first day of creation, 6 letters, which, as we just said, represent the 6 days of creation in time and space. But also in the word Bereshit is Shabbat. And that's connected to that. The first verse of the Torah has 7 words. In other words, 6 letters of Bereshit, but 7 words of the first verse. And this we discussed in a previous class, the importance of the first verse being 7 words and 28 letters. So this is just a beautiful thing that Shabbat is in the word Bereshit. And that's why in Lecha Dodi, the song that we sing at Kabbalah Shabbat, we say, Sof Ma'aseh B'machshava Techila. Shabbat is the last of creation, but the first in thought. So here we see in Bereshit, the word Shabbat is already there. It won't be created until the end, but it was there in thought. Now, the permutation of Ya'er Shabbat, the light of Shabbat. So this is very connected to the mitzvah of women lighting Shabbos candles. And women having the privilege to bring Shabbat. And that's the motion that many women make. When they light the candles, they go like this, as if they're bringing infinite light into finite light. In other words, the light of Shabbos, now we're talking about the infinite light, into physical light, into physical reality. So now this is connected to the next couple of permutations, and that is Ashrei Bat. Aleph Shin Resh Yud hyphen Bet Tav. Ashrei Bat. Happy is the daughter. Happy is the daughter. Now, what's the importance of daughter being? It's actually the first letter of Bereshit and the last letter is Bat, and in the middle is Ashrei. So this is just connected to the women lighting the Shabbos candles, because we're told that in relationship to God, all of creation is the feminine. All of creation. And we know from the Zohar was the first to reveal this idea that everything in creation is a relationship between feminine and masculine energies, not male and female per se. Male and female is kind of like the last stop of a physical manifestation of a much, much deeper, higher, more profound energy forms. So, Bat in the word Bereshit is just telling us that all of creation is the feminine. Now, in the word, now that we mentioned daughter, so in the letters of Bereshit, we have almost the nuclear family, because you have Av, Aleph Bet is father, you have Ish, which is man, Aleph Yud Shin. We know that the basis of Isha, there is no Hey in Bereshit, but the Aleph and the Hey are interchangeable. So you have two of the three letters of woman, Isha. You have Bat, like we just said, daughter, and we have Bar. The first two letters is son, Bar Mitzvah, son. So it's just a very beautiful idea, is that you have almost the entire nuclear family and the feminine and the masculine manifestations in this world in the word Bereshit. Now, what we do have is the words Ish and Eshet, like Eshet Chayil, a woman of valor. So we don't have the Hey of Isha, but we have Eshet. Eshet Chayil Ateret Bala. And we sing this every Shabbat. We sing Eshet Chayil Mi Yimsa. Now the next one is connected, is Rosh Bayit. Resh Aleph Shin hyphen Bet Yud Tav. The head of the house. Who is the head of the house? Hashem. What is the house? The universe, the cosmos. So it's like God creates a house, and we know that from building the Mishkan, the tabernacle in the desert, and building the temple in Jerusalem, the idea is for us to make a dwelling place for God in this world. And so here, the word Bereshit with the permutation of Rosh Bayit. So this alludes to something that we've learned in this series of one of the most enigmatic reasons given for God creating the world in the first place is that God had a passion to have for himself a dwelling place in the lower worlds. So that is represented by Rosh Bayit, the head of the house, the Ribbono Shel Olam, the master of the world. The world is his house. And it just reminds me that I believe you could see it on our website. If you look in articles, one of the links is to stories. So a long time ago, I wrote a children's story called The Boy Who Made His House as Big as the Whole World. But it contained very, very deep concepts of relating to the entire world as God's house. So that's one of the permutations. Another permutation is Brit Eish, a covenant of fire. Bet Resh Yud Tav hyphen Aleph Shin. A covenant of fire. Now, this is very, very connected to the description of what was the universe like right after the Big Bang. So physicists explain that the result of the Big Bang, that we'll call it now reality, was so hot that it was almost like a liquid. No atoms couldn't even form. And I believe it was Brian Greene, a very, very famous physicist, who called it exquisite plasma. It was we can't even imagine what kind of heat that we're talking about here. And so this is hinted to in a covenant of fire. And then as the world expanded, it began to cool to the point that atoms could form, molecules could form, particles could form. But before that, it was just exquisite fire. So this is connected to, it's a little aside here, that in what's called Mispar Katan, reduced numerology, the word Bereshit equals 13. In other words, the bet is 2. The resh is 200, but it reduces in Mispar Katan to 2. The aleph is 1, the shin is 300, but it reduces to 3. The yud is 1 and the tav is 4. It comes to 13. 13 is echad, oneness, and love. So this is very, very connected. Bereshit is 13, and one of the permutations is a covenant of fire. So when God commanded Avram with the mitzvah of circumcision. So the sages point out in Masechet Nedarim that in the passage about Abraham being commanded to do Brit Milah, circumcision, the word Brit is mentioned 13 times. And so the sages say it's as if Avram was commanded with 13 covenants. 13 covenants, but that 13 is a covenant of love. And it's a covenant from the one, the only one, God who is one. And this is connected to the very purpose of creation, is for the crown of creation, for mankind. And so God's love, which is encoded in Bereshit, whose mispar katan equals 13, is manifest in creation with a covenant of fire, but it eventually evolves into the mitzvah of circumcision. And like the sages said, 13 covenants God made with Avram. So this is just a beautiful idea. Another permutation is barata yesh. You created somethingness. Bet resh aleph tav hyphen yud shin. Barata yesh. And of course we have this idea of something from nothing. Before Bereshit, there was what we call ayin, infinite nothingness, which is really infinite somethingness. But from that is yesh, is created. Now, I have to say that there's three others. One is mentioned in Tikkunei Zohar, and two are not, but they are permutations. And I'm kind of saving these for our next series, which is on song and music. And only then will you understand like why I'm saving. I don't want to say it, but I'll just tell you what they are. In Tikkunei Zohar, it says one of the permutations is shir ta'ev, shin yud resh hyphen tav aleph bet. This means a desirous song, a song of longing, a song of pleasantness. And the Tikkunei Zohar goes very deep into song and music based on this. I'm not going to say more because we're going to save this for our next mini series. And the other two that are there is Shirat Av, the song of the Father, our Father in heaven. Shin Yud Resh Tav hyphen Aleph Bet, the song of the Father, the Rosh Bayit. And the other one is, if you just take the Aleph and Bet, well, what do we call our alphabet? The Aleph Bet. So Shirat Aleph Bet, the song of the Aleph Bet. So these three permutations we're going to save for our next mini series. And hopefully that has gotten everyone very excited and anticipating our next series. Okay, I think this is a good place to stop. I see a lot of chats, so we'll get to them. I think next week, perhaps we'll just finish up a few more and go on to another subject in the mystery of creation. So my bracha is that we all are able to build many houses from the letters of the Torah, meaning from the letters and the words of the Torah, we should build new insight, we should get new inspiration, we should see wondrous things, like Rav Ginsburg named his whole organization from the verse, Gal einai ve'abita niflaot mitoratecha. Open my eyes that I should see the wonders in your Torah. That is the name of the sponsor of this class, really, is Gal einai. So we should all be able to take the letters of the Torah, the words of the Torah, and build beautiful palaces of insight and inspiration.